Well, hello there. Have you ever wondered how a simple molecule like a amino acid can become something that is more complex and has more functionalities like a protein? Well, the answer to that lies in one small but mighty connection, the peptide bond. A small chemical link with great biological importance. Before we begin with our lecture proper, let's first take a small section to review what we learned through the past couple lecture videos. We know that a protein is made out of amino acids, but what about its structures? So I want you guys to reflect, jot down your answers, talk with your seatmates about the following questions. Now that we've refreshed our understanding of amino acids, let's take a look about what you'll be expected to learn by the end of this lecture video. Number 1. Defining a peptide bond and explain its formation through a condensation reaction. Number 2. Describe the structural changes involved in peptide bond formation between amino acids. Number 3. Illustrate the process of peptide bond formation using labeled molecular diagrams. These learning outcomes will not only help you understand the chemistry behind proteins, but also connect it to real-world application. Keep these goals in mind as we move into the core of today's lesson. Now that we've revisited the essential structure of amino acids, let's move forward and answer the next big question. How do amino acids connect to form proteins? Well, let's break that down one concept at a time. Let's start with the basics. What are peptide bonds ba? So, number 1, it occurs between two amino acids. For example, we use glycine and valine. Number 2, it occurs specifically at the carboxylic group COOH and the amino group NH2. Number 3, there is a hydrolysis synthesis that occurred in the molecule. Essentially, water molecule is removed from it. And lastly, it can form either a dipeptide, a tripeptide, an oligopeptide, a polypeptide. Before we move on to the next topic, we prepared a couple of assessment questions to see how you've been learning peptide bonds. That's right, the answer to those were amino acid and carboxylic groups, peptide bonds, and it connects amino acids. But what are the importance of these kinds of bonds, Di? These bonds allows for enzyme to be properly catalyzed. Its rigid structure allows for efficient catalysis. Next, it allows for proper sequencing of your amino acid to the mRNA, as any deviation can cause mutations, and these mutations is really bad for the proper functioning of your proteins. To expand the importance of your peptide bonds in connecting two amino acids, we need to understand its covalent nature. So, due to the delocalization, the sharing of electrons between carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, it allows to form partially double bonded properties for both of them. And the consequence of these is that it behaves like a double bond. It prevents free rotation on that specific peptide bond, and it makes it planar since your carbonyl carbon becomes sp3, thus planar and making it very rigid. But how do we even know that there was delocalization that occurred in the first place? We can't even see them, right? However, we have exact measurements to know that there was a delocalization that occurred. So we know that there is delocalization if the peptide bond is 1.32 angstrom with a 122-degree bond angle. Comparing it to normal CNN bonds, they have 1.47 angstrom and a bond angle of 109 degrees. With all of that, we now know that peptide bonds wants to form a specific kind of structure. So for cis, it's not that good as it's less stable and it has an effect on its steric hindrance. However, for your transformation, it is more stable as it minimizes its repulsion. Now let's take a look at how peptide bonds actually form. For this example, we use glycine and valine as the amino acids. We already highlighted the parts, the functional groups, so that it will be easier to understand the changes that occurs. You may ask, what are these weird symbols beside your carbonyl carbon and the lone oxygen of your carboxylic group? They essentially indicate that those parts are partially negative and partially positive. which makes your carboxylic group or the carbonyl atom, carbonyl carbon, electrophilic, which is important for the nucleophilic attack to even occur. But what is electrophilic, Di? What is its implication towards the whole process of the peptide bond formation? So, if we break down the name itself, electrophilic, electron loving. But how come it wants more electrons? When, if we count the bonds, there's already 4, 8. So, it's already in its stable phase. But if we look at the lone oxygen above it, diba, it's electronegative. And the fact that your oxygen has a high electronegativity means that it pulls more of the electron, the shared electron, towards itself. So, what does that leave your carbonyl carbon na lang? So, lesser na siyang electron, meaning that the whole area is ready for a nucleophilic attack. A nucleophilic attack essentially means that your amino group, the lone electron pair, will go and bond with your carbonyl carbon. But if it bonds, wouldn't there be 5 bonds now? Towards the other carbon, towards the hydroxyl group, and the double pair, and the nitrogen. There's 5. So, what happens here is that once the bond or lead electron is shared to carbon, one of the double bonds of your oxygen breaks. The electrons will now become fully to the oxygen itself. So, one bond na siya, meaning that it's back to stability. However, it's not permanent that it will stay like that. It's temporary for now, because it wants to achieve a tetrahedral intermediate before forming the final product. As it forms a tetrahedral intermediate, it must release a water molecule. Why is that? Because we want to ensure that our lone oxygen returns or reforms their double bond, as it is the identifying functional group of the carboxyl. If it stays like that, then it's no longer a carboxyl, then it's something else. Thus, it must release a water molecule, the byproduct. So once it releases, it goes back to its normal function, and then we finally have our peptide bond. Please answer the following questions shown on the screen, take your time, and send them down below in the comments. And here are examples of where we can see the importance of peptide bond formation to their functions. Firstly, we have insulin. Insulin is a type of hormone that regulates blood glucose. It binds with receptors and facilitates glucose uptake by the cell. Next, we have enzymes. Enzymes are made out of proteins, hence they have peptide bonds. And these kinds of proteins are responsible for much of the biochemical reactions. And lastly, we have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is also a protein, and it has a complex structure that allows it to efficiently bind and as well as release oxygen. To recap everything that has been discussed, a peptide bond is covalent between 2 amino acids. A peptide bond specifically occurs between the amino group and the carboxylic group. The peptide bond undergoes a dehydration synthesis, or also known as a condensation reaction. And a peptide bond is the foundation for proteins, which are crucial for biological functions. Before we end this discussion, we've prepared a couple of short evaluation for you to perform at home. And that brings us to the end of our session on peptide bond formation. If you still have questions, review your notes, check the diagrams, and don't hesitate to ask me anytime. And most importantly, keep practicing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.